In these difficult times of COVID-19, I would like all of you to smile at me. Start with a very big smile, please, because cheerfulness is what we can do in these difficult times. Good morning. Let me start. All right. Please, I have to acknowledge BBC, CNN, Economic Times, Business Standard, Indian Express, The Hindu, and The Week, and India Today, from where I get my material. Uh, I will begin. First of all, what is international business? It's basically the exchange of goods and services between countries, not within a country, between countries where it crosses borders. Now, remember that international business is the key to the rise of global economy, where supply and demand, and therefore prices, both affect and are affected by global events. Now, before I go ahead, let me talk to you about consumption and the virtuous cycle that consumption creates. Imagine I work for a bank. I'm a bank employee. I get my salary. I go and buy rice at the local dealer. The local dealer takes my money. He pays the wholesaler. The wholesaler in this chain goes and pays the farmer. Now the farmer thinks, oh yes, this particular rice I need to grow more. So he goes and says, say he goes to a seed corporation and he says, I want more seed, give me a loan. Now the seed corporation has to, imagine many farmers coming like this to the seed corporation, many employees like me buying rice. Now what we do is, the seed corporation has many requests, so it looks towards the government. And the government says, let us imagine the seed corporation is of the government. So the government says, let me release some securities because I need money for all this. So when it releases securities, let's say a merchant bank intervenes and underwrites the securities. And then it comes to the bank where I work, and my bank invests money in the securities. So the government securities give my bank an interest, and through that interest and of course other income, I get my salary. Again, I go and buy rice. Now this, I'm telling you, is the virtuous cycle of consumption. Now what has happened to this virtuous cycle, we will see. Basically, you have to understand that consumption is the key to international trade and international business. Please remember that in my slides, everything that I say is not in the slides. If you want, I can give you the entire topic, but some slides will be there. Now, in the COVID aftermath, you have banking and financial sectors working, but low key, no investments into real estate, no stock, etc. Please remember that private vehicles are not moving, no fuel consumption. Public vehicles are not moving, no fuel consumption. No tourism, no fuel consumption, no hospitality sector. This brings us to the importance of first factor that we have to consider is the importance of fuel, or we could say the main source of fuel, that is crude oil to the rest of the world. Now, remember that crude oil, is the most important commodity in our world. Its price can tell us not only what's really going on in the world economy right now, but has a great influence on what can happen in the future. I will explain. Right now, the prices of oil is telling us that the economy is in big trouble. Don't tell me what's new, ma'am. We already knew. Yes, it is in big trouble. A crisis not yet revealed in backward-looking economic growth figures. See, like any commodity, the price of oil is driven by supply and demand. Demand for oil is a very good proxy for global economic activity, and right now the talk is of demand destruction. When there is demand, the price is high. When there is no demand, the price is low, as we all know. Why demand destruction? Because planes are grounded, cities are emptied of cars, and factories are mothballed. There was widespread shock 2 weeks ago at the freakish reading of a price of minus $40 per barrel for 1 barrel of US oil. Just as sky-high oil prices can trigger recessions, low oil prices can aid recoveries. This is a good news. We will wait and see. A massive fall in the oil price is like a global tax cut on businesses big and small. But is it really happening? Now, the functioning of oil markets. The majority of markets are in London, New York, and Singapore, but crude oil and its refined products, such as gasoline, that is petrol, the other foreign countries call the petrol as gas. So if I say gas, you can understand that I mean petrol. And heating oil are procured and put on the market all over the world. Now, crude oil is found in all kinds of, it is found onshore, it is found offshore in the sea, and it is found in all sorts of forms. Now here I have to explain to you what is the meaning of crude oil. So crude oil is got from the ground, and then with the filtration process you get different kinds of, say, petrol, diesel, kerosene, and last lubricant, etc. Now crude oil is found in, either you can say it as sweet or sour crude, SOUR. How do we say that? When the content of the oil, suppose they're looking at the specific gravity, and the content of sulfur in the oil determines whether it is sweet or sour. Why is it sweet? Sweet is simpler to distill. Sour is more difficult and more expensive to distill. That's why sweet crude is cheaper, relatively cheaper. It's not so cheap, and sour is more, no, sorry, sweet is expensive, more expensive than sour. Now, if the content of sulfur is less than 0.05% in crude oil, it is supposed to be sweet. Now, let's go here. We have to do in the sweet oil, there are some benchmarkings. You may ask me, how does the price determined? There are some benchmarkings. Now, there is something called Brent crude. Brent crude is from the North Sea of UK. There is something called, in US it is called WTI, West Texas Intermediate, and then there is Dubai crude, for example. Now suppose India finds oil and we compare the oil we got here with Dubai crude. Suppose it is sweeter than Dubai crude, we can price it at a higher price, and vice versa. So this is what you have to understand about benchmarking of oils. Here it is, Brent is used to price 2/3 of the world's international traded crude oil supplies. Dubai crude is also used as a benchmark to price sales of other regional crudes as well as Asia and the Gulf region. In the United States, I told you it is WTI. Brent crude in recent times has continued to collapse, hitting a 20-year low with 16 pounds per barrel. This time, the same time last year, it was 70 pounds per barrel. You see the difference, how it has this thing. Why am I talking? As I talk, you'll understand why I'm talking about all this. Now, when the Persian Gulf found oil, the Anglo-American companies drilled the oil and took 60% of the revenue home. In 1960, Harvard-educated Arabs decided that enough is enough, and Kuwait, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela, the 5 countries, started something called the OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Why am I talking about OPEC today? Because it is so important. OPEC is playing a big role in what is happening in the consumption and demand and supply of crude oil. And crude oil is very important for consumption. If crude oil is not consumed, I'll tell you what is happening. Okay. Now, OPEC started this in September in Baghdad, 1960, Baghdad being the capital of Iraq. And OPEC actually has a basket of oils, you have the Saharan crude, etc. Today, there are 11 countries in the OPEC. Some countries jump in and jump out of OPEC, and there are 11 countries that's called OPEC Plus currently. Now, what are the OPEC is basically a commodity cartel. Now, commodity cartel, the objective of a commodity cartel is to control the price. But then how do they control the price? They control the price by controlling the supply. Why does OPEC need to control the supply? See, OPEC as a petroleum exporting country is a very powerful commodity cartel. It wouldn't like to get less powerful, you see. So why does it see? Suppose there is a lot of supply, and we know that more supply means more of, price will fall. Now, if there is more supply and price will fall, people will, what is happening? Yeah. More supply and less price means people will, more countries will buy oil. When they buy oil, they'll go into industrialization, because oil is a big source of energy supply. It supplies energy. So they'll go into industrialization. When people go into, countries go into industrialization, they develop money power to buy more technology. So they will drill their own oil. When they drill their own oil, the control of OPEC as an OPEC, will fall. You see? So that is why OPEC controls the supply. Why am I talking to you? This is, see what is happening later on today. So usually there were 7 sisters. International oil market was determined by 7 sisters, so-called Anglo-American oil companies, and and these were separate from, today we have Soviet Union with lot of oil, and other centrally planned economies. Some have oil. Mexico, for example, has oil. I cannot tell you all the countries, but major are Russia, apart from OPEC plus. Now I have given you here the basket price index. Okay. Now, led by OPEC kingpin Saudi Arabia and non-OPEC leader Russia, the group outlined a cut of 10 million barrels per day from May 1 for an initial period of 2 months. See, 10 million barrels, it is cut down. Why? I'll tell you. For the subsequent 6 months, OPEC Plus said in a statement, from July 1 through to December 2020, the total adjustment would be a cut of 8 million barrels per day, and it would continue to about 6 million barrels per day till 2022. Now, if you say, say for example, not all countries are agreeing. Mexico, for example, see, Mexico, if you see, what is the economy based on? I would like to call it, tentatively, we call it agrarian economy, based, most of it, the resources are based on agricultural produce. So we call them banana economies. Literally, some countries sell only bananas, like South American countries sell only bananas to, as the resource. So this Mexico has found oil. So the Mexican minister is saying they asked us to cut down 4 lakh barrels per day. I cannot do that because, I need my money. So he says, I'm cutting 1 lakh barrels per day. Now, what is happening? What is the impact we will see? Even OPEC Plus has urged major producers like the US to sign up to further production cuts in an effort to help the industry and the world markets, international business, to cope with the pandemic virus. Now, look at it like this. I say, you might ask me, how did the oil go down? What is the status? Now, see, in 2 weeks ago, the oil suddenly went to minus $40 a barrel. Now, you'll ask me, if I take my car and say it at the petrol bunk and say top it up, will they pay me for paying the, topping the car? Literally, it has become like that. I'll tell you why. See, now airlines and industrial companies need fuel. So, for example, you take an airline, 100% it requires fuel. It knows I have, these are the flights scheduled for each, say, for example, Bangalore to Mumbai. I have in the next 3 months, I have, say, 300 flights, not 300, we'll say 100 flight schedules. Now, each flight gives me, I need so much fuel. So for 100 flights, I need so much fuel. So there is a forecasting of the requirement of fuel by airlines for the next 3 months or more. That is why when you buy a ticket for the next 3 lines, see, no, I have to tell you this. How fuel is bought by means of forwards and futures. Futures, we trade with it. Forward is a direct contract you buy. So every airline knows that in 3 months, or say today is May 16th, June, July, August. On August 16th, if there is I know every airline knows what is the rate at which it is buying the fuel. You understand what is the rate? So that is why if I book a ticket today on August 16th, it can tell me what is the money I need to pay, because they know what is their expense. Total expense so much, in that so much is fuel. Most of it is fuel, apart from salaries. So, and then the divided by number of people, etc., etc. That is why 3 months ahead you can book. All right. Now, airlines can predict Now, oil is traded in contracts that expire on a given day of the month. If it is in futures, anyone holding the contract will have to buy the oil. The one who are dealing in contracts, no, in between, may not even see the barrel baby. You see, and then most people, okay. Now, that is why what happened. Now, why? I'll tell you why the barrel came down. Currently, since oil or fuel has not been consumed, there is no storage space left anywhere in the world. Whatever storage space was there, they put the oil in. The oil is not consumed. Airlines are not flying, and you know how much fuel airlines use. So every tank all over the world, so-called tank, is full of oil. Now you can see, so that is why the price came down. Like there is supply and there is no demand, so the price came down. US oil to be delivered in May settled at minus 37.60. It is generally said to be minus 40. The first negative close in history. That means producers which are running out of storage space as demand for energy collapses are willing to pay buyers to take the crude off their hands. That's never happened for the WTI West Texas Intermediate Futures, the US benchmark. You can see, if you Google and see, I did not prefer to bring it to you. If you Google and see, you will see oil tankers full of oil waiting offshore, many ports waiting to unload. There is no place to unload the oil. Why? There is no consumption, and because there is no consumption, supply is not cut enough. That is why it is like too late, too little. OPEC has done too late, too little. OPEC plus Russia, all the same. So you can see tankers filled with oil standing all over the world in ports waiting to unload. For a joke, I would like to tell my students, you know, if you have a big water sump and you say, okay, store some oil here, you may get paid for storing the oil. That situation has come. Now, remember, why am I saying this? A connection to oil companies. Oil companies are some of the greatest cash spewing machines on the planet and also pay a lot of tax into public coffers. You remember this? Public tax. Today, what our governments are saying, everything is the same. If the economy starts, they'll pay tax to us, and based on this tax, we can go forward. So the oil companies are the biggest taxpayers. The global oil price is such a delicate balance of interests. Right now, the balance has been shattered, which is very bad economic news. Now, for example, in the United States, hundreds of ex-employees of oil companies are depending on these oil companies for their pension. And if the oil companies fail, the pensioners are going to get affected. Now it's the government's lookout that they don't get affected, but this is the situation. All right. Next, the World Trade Organization is predicting a severe decline in commerce this year. Now it has given a continuum, pessimistic to optimistic. Pessimistic is 13% decline. Optimistic is 32% decline. Sorry, pessimistic is 32% decline. Optimistic is 13% decline. Some people in between that, 13% decline is not at all small. 32% is also, you know, too much, like mind-boggling. The more pessimistic amount would decline to a global trade similar to what happened in the Great Depression 90 years ago. But it happened. This is happening in a shorter period of time as compared to that. Now, yeah, there was one more economic recession between 2008 and 2009. It was, we say it was rooted in the United States. Now, in the United States, why the recession happened is, one is subprime lending. You know what they did? Subprime lending. So, for example, I have a salary, I'm a government employee, etc. What they give me is I take from a prime lender. If there is someone who takes from a prime lender and gives to someone else, then the rate of interest will be definitely higher, because the someone will have to pay the prime lender a particular rate of interest. When he or she takes from the prime lender and gives to others, then the rate of interest will be very high, more high, because risk is higher. Subprime lending is always given to riskier people. In the United States, what happened is the subprime lenders made a whole beautiful package of this and that and gave it to the people. It could also it was for buying homes. See, if you say, I have a okay job and I cannot pay so much, I can buy this house, but I cannot pay so much. So they'll tell you in 2 years you start paying. Possibly in 2 years you'll have a better job, and then everyone's eyes go shiny and say 2 years definitely I'll have a better job because I'll have experience, etc., etc. So they buy the house, and at the end of the 2 years they can't pay. Because jobs are not there. Unemployment rate was high in the United States, and then when they cannot pay, there was repossession of the houses. Now see, if I tell you who wants to buy my glasses, and if three of you say, I'll pay 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 30 rupees, the price of these glasses is 30 rupees, but no one wants, means the price of these glasses is zero. So such happened. People in the repossessed property in the United States could not be sold because people did not want to buy. So the price of that was actually zero. And then there was short selling of shares. Short selling when you buy shares for a margin, and at the end of the day, or when you have to pay, you cannot pay. You are only capable of paying the margin of the shares. So this is what happened in United States for 2008, 2009. Now, I'll just look at the Great Depression. Great Depression, you need to understand, because you have to compare it with today's thing. The Great Depression was in the 1920s. Important industries like agriculture, railroads, textile, steel, consumer goods, and others suffered greatly. See, what happened is during the World War One, all countries were told, if you are manufacturing something, you stop manufacturing whatever you are. So, for example, you're manufacturing cars, stop manufacturing cars. Manufacture fighter planes that are useful for the World War. Okay. So everybody was manufacturing arms, ammunitions, tanks, everything that was meant for the war. So when the war ended, there was no agriculture. Whatever food was there was exhausted. So since America had joined the war at the last minute, it was least affected. It was like really a big brother. And then American farmers, America is a large country. American farmers had vast land holdings. So they started manufacturing food, and America started supplying food to the rest of the world. But rest of the world may buy 1 year, 2 year, because they can't afford either. They'll start growing their own, remove all the landmines, whatever, and they'll start growing their and they'll start making their own food. So when they make their own food, American food was there, but it was not in demand. And then what happened? People in America had started, investing too much in shares, and the share market crashed. And see, basically, there are two reasons why a bank can crash. Basically, two. Yes Bank has given us a third reason. The first reason how banks can crash is when you don't invest the money you collected from depositors in a fruitful way. Meaning, if you're giving 6% to depositors, surely you must get 6% plus your profit plus your expenses, so much rate, or say 10% or 12% when you invest your money. But if you have not invested, there is a chance of failing. Secondly, when all your investors say, I'm not confident of the bank, I want my money back. So when you say that, what happens? The banks fail. Yes Bank has given you one more reason to understand why banks fail. Yes Bank, you give a loan and you take a kickback. Yeah, this is how Yes Bank failed, isn't it? And you take a kickback. This is the third reason why banks fail. Just joking. Now, here, there was in the Great Depression, one important thing is the Dow Jones Industrial Average was the barometer of the stock market's worth. One fine Tuesday, it all came down. Okay, see, 1924 to 1929, 300 points it jumped. Today, when you talk about big numbers of listings, 300 points is not big. But then in 1920 and 1924, 300 points jumping to higher, was a very big thing. Too many people were doing speculation and buying on margin, and then it crashed. And in 1929, 600 American banks failed, and in 1933, 11,000 failed. Now, why I have brought all this? Because we talk about Great Depression and we don't know what happened. So we cannot compare with what happened then with what happens now. Now that you understood the basic of what happened in the Great Depression, you can say, now that happened, here this can happen. You know, I'm not going to say such drastic measures like banks are going to fail and all. Our Indian economy is very strong thanks to our great, our government, our finance ministers have been really good. So in 2008, 2009, only multinational companies who had direct, direct or indirect US influence in themselves were affected. The others weren't affected. We as Indians know. Now, Mr. Roberto Azevedo is the Director General of the World Trade Organization today, and he talks about trade would be an important ingredient in the economic recovery. So, international trade is an important thing that has to be revived. Will it be revived? Who has confidence of reinvesting? Who has confidence of I will explain. Now the head of the he is so upset that he is going to step down 1 year earlier than planned, when it is a crucial moment for the global economy. The Director General of WTO, Mr. Roberto Azevedo, will step down, he says. Now we'll talk about the car makers or the automakers. Major car makers like Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai, Toyota, and Honda have not yet resumed production at their factories, stating that availability of components. Now we come to the supply chain part of it. How do availability of components happens? Because of supply chain. If the supply chain has failed, no transport is there, and small components, the factory where small components are manufactured by factories, these factories are closed, so you cannot there's no supply chain. So these car makers are saying that availability of components is a prerequisite to restart operations, which continue to remain inaccessible due to national lockdown. It has been more than a month since this thing. Today is day 52, I think, of the lockdown. Now, see, remember, what happened is when the multinational car automakers came into our country, they went into, say, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. So what happened when Hyundai went and it started manufacturing cars to be sold in India as well as abroad? What happened? Chennai small entrepreneurs took up the job of becoming OEMs, original equipment manufacturers. OEMs manufacture spare parts for the car, which goes into the original car. Please remember, every part in a car is not manufactured by the original company. For fenders, for example, fog lamps, tail lamps, all this are part of different OEMs put together. So what happened in our country is OEMs became very strong and powerful, and they became the related and supporting industries to multinational car makers, so that others, Volkswagen, Peugeot, and others have come into Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has become the car manufacturing hub. India has become the manufacturing hub of automotive industry. Automotive are the parts of the automobile that goes into this. So the whole automotive industry base is Chennai and Tamil Nadu. Chennai is home to around 35 to 40% of India's total automobile industry. So thanks to Chennai developing like that, other car manufacturers have also come into South India. Kia, the second largest of South Korea, is in Penukonda, Andhra Pradesh. The Kia is manufacturing cars for India and to sell abroad. When world-class manufacturers have accepted the OEMs, the OEMs are naturally must be making world-class products and world-class manufacturing. This has been a good thing for India, but let us see what is happening now. The economic shock of the COVID-19 pandemic, there's a global crisis. Global shares have taken a hit. Big shifts in stock market. where shares in companies are bought and sold. Now see, the FTSE, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and the Nikkei, that is Japanese, have seen huge falls. The IMF says that the global economy will shrink by 3%. Imagine 3% of the whole world is huge, mind-boggling. As in 2008 and 9, governments have again intervened with monetary and fiscal policy. This is the hand-holding I was talking about. All right, to counter the downturn and provide temporary income support to businesses and households. But restrictions of movement. See, the first question I asked: resuscitation. Is it possible given the people are scared to invest? Restrictions on movement and social distancing mean that labor supply, transport, and travel are today directly affected in ways that were not during the financial crisis of 2008 2009. Then all this was not, social distancing and labor, no labor, all this was not there in 2008 2009. Whole sectors of national economies have been shut down, including hotels, restaurants, non-essential. You know all this, I don't want to say. Forecasting requires stronger assumptions about the progress of the disease. See, we don't know what is going to happen. People are saying there's going to be a relapse. The people are saying there's going to be a second wave. When we see what has happened in Mumbai, suddenly the spurt of cases, etc., and other parts of our country, then we are not sure whether the COVID-19 is going to get a halt. We're not sure when the lockdown is going to stop. So these are the uncertainties which make you risk averse. This is my answer to the first question, risk averse. And the second question, building blocks, I've started talking about it. See, after the financial crisis of 2008 2009, trade never returned to its previous trend. A strong rebound is likely if businesses and consumers, we have to view this pandemic as a temporary thing and as just a shock. We should not think of it that we have to live with it. So like this, even deciding that we have to live with it will be adapting. But then we should not say that this kind of lockdown is going to continue, etc. It is a shock. It has to stop. It's a one-time thing. Governments have urged employees to work from home all over the world. Excuse me a minute. Let us see who has benefited. Shares in technology companies such as Zoom have shot up as more and more people rely on video conferencing. Demand for online shopping and entertainment has soared because people are staying indoors. Amazon's share price has hit new highs, while streaming platform Netflix at one point become a more valuable company than oil giant ExxonMobil. The Europe, now look at the other positive side of it is pollution. The European Space Agency has registered an impressive fall in pollution across the European skies in Europe. The images clearly show how a strong reduction in emission is now in place over major cities over Europe, particularly Paris, Milan, and Madrid. You must have seen, no, even in our country, how no pollution has led to cleaner air. And I think from some North Indian state, you could see the Himalaya mountains outlined, which could not be seen. Even Delhi is breathing clean air thanks to this lockdown. A similar trend has been detected, like this thing, all over India's industrial hubs, wherever like Mumbai, Bangalore, and Kolkata, etc. We are seeing cleaner images when you see from the satellite. Restrictions have affected the supply chains of large companies such as industrial maker JCB and car maker Nissan. Shops and car dealerships have all registered a fall in demand. Chinese car sales have dropped by 48%. More car makers, Tesla's from UK, and Geely is from China, now selling cars online as customers want to stay at home. Okay, spending on investment goods and consumer durables most probably will resume to previous levels once the crisis abates. On the other hand, if this outbreak is prolonged, recurring uncertainty becomes pervasive, then household and businesses are likely to spend more cautiously. Now, um, this pandemic has disturbed the political, social, economic, religious, and financial structures of the world. World's topmost economies, such as the US, China, UK, Germany, France, Italy, and Japan, are almost on the verge of collapse. Stock markets have been pounded, and oil prices have fallen, which I already said. In just 1 week, 3.3 million Americans applied for unemployment, and 1 week later, 6.6 million Americans have started searching for jobs. Many experts on economic and financial matters have warned, but you can listen to this managing director of IMF. She says a recession, at least as bad as during the global financial crisis, that is 2008 2009, or she says far worse. COVID 19 is harming the global economy, and we are facing the most difficult situation that we had seen after World War II. None of us may have seen it, but we'll have read about it. Keeping in view the staggering situation, the G20 nations called an emergency meeting to discuss worsening conditions and prepare a strategy, etc. The US official from Federal Reserve that American employment would be 30% and the economy, see, it is like this. America is in debt and it is still borrowing. And experts have said you borrow more to get over your debt crisis. The current American budget had a deficit of a staggering, eye-popping 1 trillion American dollars. In the next one, it will be 3.71 trillion deficit. If that is eye-popping, what is this? Okay, there's a real threat for people losing their jobs. Okay, now one thing you remember, I think we are coming to India. By looking over the existing condition of several businesses, most of the investors are removing their money from multiple businesses, and we have seen that already $83 billion have been removed from emerging markets. Emerging markets, even under developing countries like India and other emerging markets, $83 billion have been removed from investment. What is going to happen? Now, see, there is, I've not brought you the statistics, but China is a very big player in supplying venture capital to Indian startups. And we know what is happening to China. It is one of the biggest venture capital providers to Indian startups. So it is very severe on most of the world economy. People are shutting up shops. Economic recovery from this fatal disease was only possible by 2021. But you cannot ignore what impacts it has left. See, IMF is if you remember, if you know, during the Bretton Woods 1945 conference, IMF and IBRD make the World Bank. IMF was formed for helping economies recover from the ill effects of the Second World War. Now, IMF is also there. Later on, it changed its objective. IMF is there to help economies recover. So, you know how many countries have asked IMF for help? 80 countries have already, this one, we have about 200 countries in the world. 80 countries have already asked IMF for monetary support for recovery of their economy. The OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, stated that global growth would be cut to 1.5% in 2020. Okay, now I will talk about India and India's foreign trade. First of all, the government of India, Modi ji, has said that he will make suitable, suitable changes in the foreign FDI policy, foreign direct investment policy, because he does not want foreign businesses to doing opportunistic acquisitions of Indian businesses who cannot withstand the financial stress. He doesn't want foreign businesses to take over, so they are making suitable, this one. Now, most Bloomberg Economics. So Bloomberg Economics wants that full year GDP growth could fall to a zero in a worst case pandemic scenario. Foreign direct investment flows could fall between 5 to 15%. Diane Swong, chief economist at the advisory firm Grant Thornton, says various nations have multinational companies that operate in the world because the economy is global. For instance, listen to this, China has touch points in every other economy in the world. They are part of the global supply chain. I will explain about China, then I'll come to India, how China has affected India. I have time now, Kavya? Yeah, I have, I think, 20 minutes. Okay, production at China's factories is growing for the first time since the coronavirus pandemic began now. Industrial output has increased and China is recovering. China is slowly trying to return to normal. Domestic demand remains very weak. Retail sales in China have dropped from 7.5% in April from a year earlier. Last April to this April, there's a 7.5% decrease. And the official unemployment rate in China, which tracks jobless numbers in urban areas, reached 6% from, there was 6.2% in February, 5.9 in March, and now it is May, it is 6%. Now, let us look at Germany's economy. See, I can't tell you all over the world, but I'll tell you the ones, with examples. Germany's economy shrank at the fastest pace since the global financial crisis, with GDP contracting by 2.2%. The country's statistic agency has said that household consumption has fallen sharply. Why? Maybe we realize that we do not require everything that we originally used to buy. Maybe we have, all of us have learned to live with less. We have learned to be satisfied with less. We have learned to be satisfied with be sitting at home, not going out for a drive and spending so much fuel is not really necessary to be happy. So consumption, household consumption has fallen. You just see, Mark, this is a very important thing. Investment in machinery and equipment plummeted. Risk aversion is the case. While both imports and exports saw a strong decline, Germany joins France and Italy in recession. Okay, now first quarter GDP decline 5.8% decline in France, 4.7% in Italy. Now I will not talk to you much about them because already I've talked about the world. Let us see how international business in India has been affected. A severe supply chain disruption from China. Okay, now I'll tell you what has happened in India. We have pharma. India imports 69% of its drug intermediaries from China. Buffer stocks are there for 2 or 3 months. After that, we have to see what to do. Travel and tourism, they say Vistara and I'll just this one. Indigo is supposed to be good in India. Vistara and Air Asia are supposed to be okay, but others we do not know. Now, see, where telecom and electronics are concerned, we have big players and small players in India. Big players are, the ones who give you the free, etc. So the big players have been buying, their sets, etc. from China and components from China and South Korea. Both these countries are affected by the pandemic. Now, big players are looking towards Europe for procurement. International procurement from Europe will be much more expensive than from China and South Korea. So we will be affected because basically if they are paying more, then we'll have to pay more. Then look at the small players in telecom and electronics. There are a lot of small players. They used to bring all their products, components in completely knockdown conditions, CKD condition from China. Now the supply chain has been disrupted. The big, like I said, the big players have decided to diversify They are, they're going into multi-vendor strategies now. Europe, you have 27 nations. There were 28 with the exit of Britain with Brexit. There are 27 in the European Union. So they're looking at multi-vendor strategy. There's a paradigm shift. And also the small vendors, what they are going to do is they're looking at indigenous supplies, which is a good thing. Indigenous suppliers, the supply chain will be, the value chain is completely at a mess. So the indigenous supplies they are looking at. Now look at the jewelry sector. It is said that Jaipur, etc. For example, Jaipur, North India used to export lot of jewelry to China. 4 exhibitions have been cancelled from February to April, and they're looking at 8,000 to 10,000 crore loss. Wait, I think it is 8,000 to 10,000 crore loss in jewelry. India exported about 8,673 crores rupees worth of marine products to China, but now since it's looking at a 3,000 crore loss. And there are, I told you about pharma, etc., seafood, yeah, travel and tourism, auto components and agri products also are being affected because so much of, so China is this one. Worst is FDI into India, where India is concerned, venture capital into India, where China has a big, big hand, sadly. All right. Now, in India, I have to say, see, when I talk about the topic, I cannot restrict myself to the topic. Little bit here and there, I have to go out, not restrict myself to international business, but it is all connected. So today, livelihood of lower class laborers like domestic and labor and construction workers has been affected. How much time do I have? I think I'm about to, Kavya, I think I need just a 5 more. Okay, when it comes to the human cost of the coronavirus pandemic, it is immeasurable. Therefore, all countries need to work together, please remember, with cooperation and coordination to protect economic damages as well as human beings. Now, what are we looking at? We are looking at international cooperation. But please remember, in Kerala, they invited a US-based company to do some analytics. So the people were angry. Why cannot Kerala do internal analytics? So it's a fine balance between privacy and analytics. So it's a fine balance for all of us in very many sectors. When we talk about international cooperation, how do we keep our privacy or our security intact? This is going to be a challenge. The lockdown has restricted various businesses such as traveling to contain the virus. Consequently, tourism has come to a big halt. How are we going to revive tourism? We need international cooperation. Then, because of, I'm on my last slide, but I'll tell you something. Because of globalized and connected world, wrong actions and policies taken by any state will leave a severe impact on other countries. See, if you look at 1915 to 1920, international business was at jeopardy. Why? What they did is there was nobody, see, when the World War ended, 1918 and all, there was nobody, no international agency to regulate foreign exchange or foreign trade. With the result, 1920, we had the League of Nations and etc., but it was not effective. What people did is they said there was nobody to this thing. See, till IMF and IBRD came, there was nobody to regulate foreign exchange. What people did is beggar thy neighbor policies. If he's selling for 10 rupees a product, the same product I'm selling, I'll sell it for 9. And someone says I'm selling for 8. Finally, your production cost of production is 8, and all of you are selling at 7. So beggar thy neighbor policies. These things should not happen. These things should not recur. History should teach us to be cooperative with each other. This is not the time for political point scoring and fight with each other. It is time to cooperate, coordinate, and help each other so that we defeat the pandemic and also we recover our global economic and financial structure. With this, I conclude.